As of today, people around the world are still struggling as the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of human life and presents unforeseen challenges to public health and economy. Only together we can overcome the devastating health, social, and economic impacts of the pandemic and rebuild a better new normal. Fortunately, there are vaccines developed that are safe, effective, and built to save lives. With this, we want to be a part of the solution by developing a monitoring system named VacSense, which aims to secure the effectiveness of these vaccines by providing a tool to monitor the temperature, humidity, and light exposure of its storage. To have a further understanding of how vaccines works, a demo and a detailed explanation of how the mobile application was programmed and how IoT was integrated will be provided in this video.
This is our code for Wemos. These are for initializing Wi-Fi connection. And then here we initialize the pin number 2 of uh, Wemos where the DHT sensor is connected. And then dito naman we initialize the pin number 13 of Wemos where the LDR sensor is connected. And then here this part of code will begin connecting the Wemos to the Wi-Fi connection. And then dito naman, the value that comes from the LDR sensor will be stored in the lightstat variable, while the current temperature that was sensed by the DHT sensor will be stored in the current variable. And yung current humidity naman will be stored in the curhum variable, which is parehas silang naka-float. And then here, after storing the following data, the temperature and humidity values will be converted into string. The reason is yung structure ng database namin is naka-varchar, and for us to pass the values of temperature and humidity to database, we have to convert it first into a string. And then dito naman, the condition is if the Wemos is already connected to the Wi-Fi connection, the following code will be run by the compiler. So, else, ito yung else, error in Wi-Fi connection will be printed on the serial monitor. This part of code will pass the value stored in the lightval variable to database through the code written in applightstatus.php. And then dito naman, it will pass the value stored in the temperature and humidity variables through the code written in collectdht.php. And then ito naman, it will get the minimum and maximum data of temperature and humidity coming from the database through the code written in getdata.php. And then yung values na yon na kinuha sa database will be echoed, and then yung min-max variable yung mag-store ng values na yon. And then yung values na yon is naka-array. In our Wemos code, we have 4 classes. And yung unang class na tatawagan is yung split string class. And here, since nga yung variable min-max rather, is nakastore dito yung values na naka-array, yung in-echo kanina sa kinuha sa database, kailangan paghiwalayin yung values na yon. So, dito sa split string class is paghihiwalayin yung values na naka-stored doon sa array, and then will be returned and stored into first, second, third, and fourth variables. And then, ang next class na tatawagin is yung convert to float na class na may arguments na first, second, third, fourth variables. So, dito ipinasa yung values na in-split natin kanina dun sa array. So, etong convert to float class, i-convert niya yung string values into float. and then return, and those values will be stored into max temp, min temp, maximum, and minimum variables. And then yung next class is yung light status class na may argument na light stat. So dito ipinasa yung value na na-sense ng LDR sensor kanina. So here, ito yung light status na class. Yung if-else condition dito is the one that indicates if the environment sensed by the LDR sensor is bright or dark. So if na-sense na environment is bright, yung variable na light val will be equals to 1. And if naman yung na-sense na environment is dark, yung light val na variable will be equals to 0. And so, yung circuit kasi namin, yung Wemos namin is nagpapasa ng data to Arduino. So, here, kapag yung na-sense na environment is bright, ang ipapasa na value ni Wemos to Arduino is 5 through serial.write. And kapag dito naman, yung na-sense na environment is dark, ang ipapasa naman ni Wemos na value to Arduino is 6 through serial.write. And then yung last class na tatawagin is yung LED color na class na may arguments na min temp, max temp, minum, maximum, curtemp, and curum. So, etong mga max and min, ito yung values na kinuha natin dun sa database, which is yung user input galing doon sa aming mobile application. Ito yung mga kinonvert natin kanina from string to float and yung in-split natin na array. Then, ito naman, curtemp and curum is yung temperature and humidity naman na galing doon sa DHT sensor. So, here, ito naman, this if-else condition inside the LED color class will determine the color of the RGB LED. So, nakadepende doon sa condition kung anong value yung ipapasa ni Wemos to Arduino na either 1 hanggang 4. So, ang next na i-explain ko naman is yung code namin sa Arduino. So, this is our code for Arduino, and here we use the concept of RTOS. So, dito, we initialize the pin number of Arduino where the RGB LED is connected. And here, we initialize the handler for each task. So, we have 3 tasks named serial read, LED color, and light stat. And all of them just have the same prioritization. So, here, ito yung class para dun sa color ng RGB LED. So, our first task is serial read. Dito, yung task na kumukuha ng value na ipinasa ni Wemos to Arduino. So, if merong pinasa na data, that data will be stored in val variable, which is character. And then, ipiprint the pass value is, and then yung value na ipinasa. And then, our next task is yung LED color tasks. Ito naman yung para sa pag-ilaw ng color ng RGB LED. So, here, if yung ipinasa na value ni Wemos to Arduino is 1, ang magiging color ng RGB LED is green. Ang ibig sabihin nun is normal. So, ipiprint storage status is normal. And then, kapag ang ipinasa naman na value is 2, ang magiging color ni RGB LED is blinking yellow. Ibig sabihin merong temperature warning. And then, ipiprint storage status temperature warning. Kapag naman ang value na ipinasa is 3, ang magiging color naman ni RGB LED is blue. And then, blinking blue. Ibig sabihin merong humidity warning. Again, ipiprint storage status naman humidity warning. And then, kapag naman ang ipinasa na value is 4, ibig sabihin merong temperature and humidity warning. So, ibig sabihin parehas na lumagpas yung temperature and humidity doon sa minimum and maximum na sinet ni user. And then, ipiprint storage status warning. And then, for our last task, which is yung light stat, dito naman i-indicate if yung ipiprint ba is in bright or yung dark environment. So, ipag ang pinasa na value ni Wemos to Arduino is 5, ipiprint is status, the environment is bright. And kapag naman ang ipinasa ni Wemos to Arduino na value is 6, ang ipiprint naman status, the environment is dark. So, ayun lang po yung code namin for Arduino. And then, ang next na i-explain naman is yung aming circuit. So, this is our circuit. In our circuit, we have used two sensors as our input, which are the LDR sensor and then the DHT sensor. We also have used an RGB LED as our output and an Arduino Uno and Wemos as our platform technologies. So here, both of our sensors are connected to Wemos, and then our RGB LED is connected to Arduino. So here, as you can see, the LDR sensor is connected to a relay switch, and then the relay switch is connected to the pin of Wemos. And then here we have a wire for the transmitter of Wemos, and that wire is connected to the RX or receiver of Arduino. So in our circuit, we are passing data from Wemos to Arduino. So here, as you can see in our serial monitor, the Wemos passed two different values to our Arduino Uno. The first value, which is 5, is yung galing doon sa LDR sensor. The second value, which is yung 3, is galing naman doon sa DHT sensor. So, these two different values have their meaning depending dun sa sinet naming if-else condition to our Arduino code. So, here, if the value is 5, ibig sabihin the LDR sensor sensed a bright environment. And kapag naman ang value is 3, that means the current humidity value exceeds the limit of the minimum and maximum value that was set by the user. So, here as you can see sa aming circuit, ang color ng aming RGB LED is a blinking blue. So, ibig sabihin merong humidity warning. So, open ko lang yung auto scroll for us to see that the value is changing. So, ayan. So, kapag tinakpan ko yung LDR sensor, ayan, tinakpan ko. So, nagbago. Ang past value na is 6 at ipinapakita is the environment is dark. So, ganun din sa aming database. So, ang value ng light stat currently is 1. So, ibig sabihin merong bright environment. But since tinakpan lang natin yung LDR and then we try to refresh our database, the value of light stat will become 0. So, ibig sabihin, the values that coming from our circuit is nagsasend doon sa database and nasa-store doon sa aming database. So this is our database named Medicine Storage, which has 3 tables. The first table is called data log. So here, dito nasisave yung current temperature and current humidity per week with specified time in the morning and the evening. And then the next table is yung storage info. Dito naman nasisave yung max and minimum temperature and humidity values that was set by the user through our mobile application. Dito rin nasisave yung light stat, current temperature and current humidity values that nanggaling sa DHT sensor and LDR sensor. And last table is yung users. So, dito naman nakasave rather yung information ng admin and then yung regular employees. So, as you can see here sa aming users info, we have one admin which is si Nelvi Shin and yung employee ID niya is 26 and one regular employee Ang employee ID niya is 11. Ang first name is Jujutsu and last name is Kaisen. So later on our application demo, I will use this information for us to see if I can log in as an admin and a regular employee to our mobile application. So this is our demo of our mobile application called VacSense. Ito yung amin login layout where you can log in either as an admin or a regular employee. So here, we have set various validations. So yung una is bawal mag-empty yung isa or dalawang fields. And then yung pangalawa is hindi ka makaka-login if mali yung password or yung employee ID. So, for example, empty yung both fields and then we press the login button. Sasabihin, please fill up all fields. And then, for example, meron lang isang field na empty and then we pressed on the login button. There will be a text saying, please fill up all fields. And then, for example, tama yung employee ID but mali yung password. There will be a text saying, incorrect username or password. And then, kapag naman, tama yung password but mali yung employee ID, ganun pa rin yung sasabihin incorrect username or password. So, ang i-demo ko muna is yung layout kapag nag-login ka as an admin. So, ayan, login successfully. So, etong next layout na ipapakita after mag-login is dito nadi-display yung current temperature and humidity na nasa-sense nung DHT sensor. Dito rin nadi-display yung environment na nasa-sense ng LDR sensor if there is a dark or bright environment. Here, dito rin sa layout na to, madi-display yung name ng current user na nag-login dun sa mobile application. And then, yung warning. So, something is wrong. This is a warning. If the humidity and temperature value, either one of them or both of them, exceed the minimum and maximum value that was set by the user. And then, meron din kaming manage storage button. Here, pag click yan, you can see the current minimum, maximum value of temperature and humidity that was set, and then you can update those values. So, for example, ito ginawa kong 2 and then I pressed the update button, there will be a text saying updated. And then next is yung aming daily log. So, dito madi-display yung current temperature and humidity per week. And then, ito naman is for account settings. So, dito pwedeng magpalit ng password yung users. And then, dito rin pwedeng mag-add ng another admin or regular user. And also, you can change the information or delete the information of the user. So, dito sa account settings, meron din kaming various validations. First is, of course, bawal maging empty yung fields. So, pag click yung change password, please fill up all blank spaces yung lalabas sa text. And, for example, hindi nagmatch yung old password. Kunwari, naglagay tayo ng old password na hindi nagmatch. And then, change password, sasabihin incorrect old password. For example, tama naman yung old password, pero hindi nagmatch yung new password and then yung confirm new password. Ayan. Ang lalabas naman is new and confirm password don't match. Ayan. So, dito naman sa manage users, ang validation dito is hindi nakiklik yung any of these buttons unless mag-search ka muna ng employee ID. So, for example, sinearch ko yung 26. Ayan, lalabas yung user type niya, if admin ba siya or regular, and then yung first name and last name. And then, tsaka mo pa lang pwedeng pindutin yung update button and then yung delete button. So, ayan. So, kapag nag-search na tayo ng user, hindi na natin pwedeng i-edit or maklik yung employee ID unless we pressed on the cancel button. And then, tsaka pa lang mag-clear yung mga fields. And another validation is, for example, we search for an employee ID and we want to update the information of that employee. And then, for example, ginawa nating empty yung first name and then we pressed on the update button, sasabihin, please fill up first name. And ganun din, for example, in-empty naman natin yung last name, then we pressed on the update button, sasabihin, please fill up the last name. So, again, kanina, ang pinakita ko is nag-login ako as an admin. So, ngayon naman ang ipapakita ko is what will happen if I log in as an regular user only. So, magla-log out lang tayo. Ayan. And then, I will try to log in as a regular employee. So, 11 and then VacSense 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, we have a default password for every regular employee. So, ayan, kapag nag-login ka as a regular employee, same pa rin yung layout para dito sa display ng temperature, humidity, and light environment, pati yung manage storage. However, dito sa account settings, ayan, as you can see, wala na yung manage users. So, hindi na pwedeng add ng admin or regular employee or mag-change ng information ng other users. So, ayun yung difference ng regular and admin account. So, this is our complete demo of our mobile application that is connected to our circuit. So, as of now, yung current humidity is out of range. Ang value niya is 22.30 and ang maximum value niya dapat is 6 lang and yung minimum value niya dapat is 2. So, kaya out of range siya. And yung color ng RGB LED is a blinking blue. So, what if naman ginawa nating normal yung both temperature? So, pinalitan natin to, ginawa nating 60. So, in-update. Ayan. So, parehas na silang normal. And then, mapapalitan din yung text dito na everything is normal. And then, kapag normal lahat, ang magiging color ng RGB LED is a steady green. So, ayan. What if naman yung temperature lang yung out of range? So, ang current value ng temperature natin is 2.40. Gawin natin yung maximum value niya is 1 lang. Or sabihin natin 2. Then, in-update natin. Then, refresh. Ayan. So, magiging out of range na yung temperature. And then, ang magiging color na nung RGB LED is a blinking yellow. Hindi lang obvious dun sa video, but that is a blinking yellow at hindi color green. So, yan. Ngayon, light is on na siya. Kanina light is off kasi natatakpan yung LDR. So, ayan. Pag tinakpan yung LDR, ayan, nakatakip. And then, ni-refresh natin yung application. Ayan. Mapapakita na light is off. Again, kapag tinanggal naman yung takip dun sa LDR, and then ni-refresh ulit yung mobile application, wait lang, natatakpan yung LDR. Ayan. So, pag ni-refresh, ang mapapakita na is light is on. So, ipapakita ko rin yung demo na nababago yung user information dito sa account settings. So, as of now, ang password ni Nelvishin is 23. So, kapag pinalitan natin yung password, so, yan, 23, ginawa natin 1, 2, 3. And then, confirm natin 1, 2, 3. Change password. Wait. Hindi yata nag-match. Natin 1, 2, 3. Then, change password. Ayan, lalabas updated. And then, dito sa user info ng database, ayan, update na yung password ni Nelvishin, naging 1, 2, 3 na siya. And then, let's try naman na i-update yung pangalan ng isang regular user. So, kanina dito sa database, that is Jujutsu Kaisen. So, pagka sinearch natin yon, ayan, and then pinalitan natin yung dating Juju lang, ganyan. And then, we press the update button. Lalabas yung alert dialog. Then, we press yes. Data updated. And then, makikita dito sa Ayan, database na naging Juju na yung pangalan nung employee kanina. So, ayan. Papakita naman natin yung delete feature. So, let's try na i-delete yung regular employee. Then, pag sinerch natin, ayan. And then, we try to delete. Lalabas ulit, alert dialog, are you sure you want to delete user data? And kapag niyas natin, ayan, data deleted. And then, pag ni-refresh natin yung database for users, ayan, nawala na si Jujutsu Kaisen.
For the C# code, we created a separate class for all the HTTP web requests and response. And then dito po, naglagay po kami ng variable for the IP address para isa na lang yung kailangang baguhin. First, we have the HTTP login, wherein it would call the PHP code for login and pass the employee ID and password na in-input ni user. The PHP codes will be discussed later in the video. And then after the HTTP web request, the HTTP web response would be stored in the response variable, and a stream reader was used to read the response that would be stored in the res variable, which will be returned by the method. We also use the request timeout and request abort to prevent the thread from flooding, kasi kapag tumatagal na po yung gamit and ang dami na nung actions na ginagawa, nagka-crash na po yung application. It's just the same with all the methods. The only difference is yung parameters and yung tinatawag na PHP file, because it's based on the code needed. For the login, we just called the class from before to get the HTTP web response. We have an edit text para sa employee ID and password, and a button to submit the user input. Once the button is clicked, pupunta po siya sa login method, wherein kukunin yung in-input ni user to be validated. Kapag blank lahat or isa lang sa ID or password, hindi siya makakapag-login. Pero kapag nag-input si user ng both ID and password, the HTTP login from the class before would be called, kasi yung PHP code yung mag-check if valid ba yung login information na in-input. If it's valid, yung employee name and user status will be retrieved, and then gagawing empty yung text fields once nakapag-login na, which is also a measure para ma-secure yung account ni user. After a successful login, the user will be brought straight to the storage information activity with his or her name, employee ID, and user type.
In here, storage activity contains the code behind the storage layout that will be seen after a successful login. We used intent to transfer data of employee, such as name, ID, and user status. This get current storage info is a function that continuously get data from the database, such as minimum and maximum of temperature and humidity, as well as status of light. This data comes from the circuit that was explained a while ago. In here, we also compare temperature and humidity's current, such as minimum and maximum. So we will be able to identify if it is out of range or normal, depending on what is set by the user. Since this information is updating, a refresh method is done to update the information of storage status. In case of problem, the user can set temperature and humidity's maximum and minimum through manage storage button, which is this pop-up storage. This pop-up storage overlaps the manage storage info. So in here, this is another layout that shows the edit text for temperature and humidity's minimum and maximum. It will be delivered to the database, and the database will get that again to set and to see if it is out of range or normal. Daily log activity contains the code behind the display report layout. The data comes from managed storage info. It was recorded in a certain schedule and saved to the database. Since the data will be updated, we also include a refresh method to update the table. The table is dynamic. Since its number of rows is changing, we use text view adapter. It counts the length of our result data to set the rows and place the data in it. We put the data into a list string for easier data manipulation. This is account activity. It handles management for regular and admin users. We get the user status that comes from the login. This will indicate if the user that logged in is a regular or admin user. If it's a regular user, the Manage Users button will be hidden. Otherwise, it will be visible. That will be function to have an add, delete, and update the certain user. For both users, for regular and admin, they can update their password. Since adding a password will have a default password, so they will be required to update their password. And first of all, verifying the old password is a must, and a confirmation of two match password is also must. For the Manage Users button, this is also a pop-up layout. This will overlap the Manage Account layout. This includes search, add, update, and delete. First, before you add and update or delete a user, you must search a user. If a user was found, update and delete will be available while add will be disabled. Otherwise, add will be enabled while update and delete will not be enabled. And of course, we also input a validations for this in case there's a problem for storage activity, daily log, and account activity. We have a button that will transfer in between those activities. And that includes transferring the name, employee ID, and user status. We also use this finish to avoid any crash in the application.
Sa PHP po namin, unahin po muna natin yung connection.php. This is where we initialize our database connection po para tatawag-tawagin na lang ng ibang mga PHP files itong connection.php. Nandito po yung DB host, which is local host po kasi local server lang po ito. Then user, then password. Wala pong naka-assign na password para sa database. And then yung DB name, which is medicine storage po. Then gumamit na po kami ng MySQLi Connect para i-open na po ang connection sa database namin. If hindi po nahanap ang database, magta-terminate na po yung script and magpiprint ng unable to select database. Dito po sa login, tinawag namin yung connection.php to connect po sa database. Ginet po namin ang input ni user which are MID and password. Sinend namin ang parameters na nagmula sa login function sa Visual Studio which is ito, employee ID and password. And this for the field name sa database. Sa query naman po, gumamit kami ng function na concat to select the combined fname and lname of the user as name. Dahil ginamit din po namin yun sa design ng UI namin. Sinelect din po namin ang user status to identify kung admin or regular user ang nag-login. Ipinasok po namin yung con at query variable sa check variable. And gumamit po kami ng MySQLi num rows to get kung ilan ang rows ng users table at pinasok namin sa variable na row. Meron din po kaming MySQLi fetch array para i-fetch ang result ng array at habang meron, ini-store po ito sa myArray variable. If myArray is empty, mag-e-echo ito ng incorrect username or password. Else, marireturn ang JSON value, successful ang login. Pagka-login, mapupunta na sa storage layout wherein dito naka-display yung current temperature, current humidity, at light status kung naka-on ba or off ang light. Sa select cur storageinfo.php, sinelect namin lahat from storage info table para gamitan na lang ng get property ang mga fields gamit ang JSON at mai-display sa layout ang current temperature, humidity, at light status. Sa storage activity din ang pag-update namin ng temperature at humidity. Sa update temp.php namin, ginet namin ang input ng user na max temp at min temp para magamit sa query naming update. So, ayan, update storage info set max temp equals yung kinuha naming input ng user from C# at min temp equals input ng user. If successful ang query, mag-e-echo ito ng updated. Else, mag-e-echo ito ng error in updating. Same goes with update hum.php namin. Ginet din namin ang input ng user sa maxhum at minhum. Sa account settings, dito nag-a-update ng password. Sa verify user password.php namin, kinuha namin yung input ng user na old password at kinuha din namin ng MID ng nakalogin para ma-verify kung tama ba ang old password na in-input ni user. So, select MID from users where MID is equal sa current na nakalogin and PWord is equal sa old password na in-input. So, if hindi match yun, or hindi tamang input ni user, mag-e-echo ng incorrect old password. If match naman, mag-e-echo ng match. Then, proceed na sa update regular password. So, i-update na dito yung password ng user sa in-input niyang new password. So, update users set pword is equal sa in-input niyang new password where emp ID is equal sa ID ng nakalogin. If true ang query, mag-e-echo siya ng updated. Else, mag-e-echo siya ng none. Then, sa pag-add ng user, ginet namin ang mga inputs ng user na employee ID, user status, first name, last name, at password na ginawa na naming default. So, insert into users, emp ID, status, fname, lname, p-word, values, yung mga in-input ni user. Then, sa pag-search ng user information, sa searchuser.php, sinelect lang namin lahat from users where emp ID is equal sa emp ID na in-input ni user sa text field. And then, display na lang sa edit text sa layout. Sa update user, ginet namin ang mga nasa edit text kung saan nag-update si user ng information. Then, ginamit namin sa query. So, update users, set user status is equal sa radio button na pinili ni user. Fname equals inputted first name. Lname equals inputted last name. Where emp ID is equal sa naka-input na ID ni user. Sa delete user, yung emp ID lang kinuha namin and then select all from users where emp ID is equal sa in-input na ID. If walang na-search, mag-e-echo ng employee ID is not registered. Else, i-delete na niya ang record ng employee na yon. Sa dailylogs.php, sinelect lang namin lahat from datalog table para ma-display sa UI.